Now joined by Jay, aka Cinema Coconut. Welcome back to the show, Jay.
Hello, hello.
Being with me after our triumphant Love Actually episode back at Christmas time, where we gave a very normal episode where we gave love advice to fictional characters. Yeah, we're doing a best adapted screenplay now. And I guess we'll start out by just telling you what the nominees are. So the nominees are the screenplays for A Complete Unknown, Conclave, Emilia Perez, Nickel Boys, and Sing Sing. So we'll just go one by one and talk about the movies, starting with A Complete Unknown. This movie was directed by James Mangold, screenplay by James Mangold and Jay Cox, and this was based on a book, Dylan Goes Electric by Elijah Wald. So, Jay, well, are you a Bob Dylan fan at all?
Honestly, I am not. Mm-hmm. And after this movie, I'm still not, but it was a good movie. So I enjoyed my time with this one.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, because I am a pretty big Bob Dylan fan. And I think one reason I like the movie a lot is it's like, yeah, this kind of confirms what I thought of Bob Dylan, which is a kind of an asshole and maybe not an empty vessel, but I don't know. So somebody who's like such a genius that he could fit in any scene he wanted to. And folk was just the right thing at the right time. And maybe he didn't have anything to say there. What'd you think generally of it as a movie?
So I don't really go out of my way too much to see biopics. I kind of fall in that group of people that think like, oh, they're just Oscar baity, blah, blah, blah. And it would take like a public figure that I'm like really familiar with or like really fond of for me to watch their biopic. And like I said, Bob Dylan, I don't have any like hatred against his music or anything. I just don't have any strong feelings in general.
Yeah.
But I am a fan of Timothée Chalamet, and knowing that James Mangold wrote and directed this, it did pique some interest because I did like Walk the Line. And I think you even said it in your review that he kind of wrote some stereotypes or cliches for biopics. And I can kind of see that here, like it's kind of formulated, but I still liked it. I thought it was good for what it was.
Yeah, I mean, he's trying to Mangold, with his script is, I think, trying to swerve away from because he wrote and directed Walk the Line, the Johnny Cash biopic from 2005. And I think this movie is very consciously trying not to be like Walk the Line. Like it's not Dylan's whole life. It's just 3 years, 2 to 3 years of his life at the beginning of his career. But still, you can't avoid having those moments that all musical biopics seem to have, like where he comes up with a song. It's not like he literally is like, wait a minute, like a Rolling Stone, I need to write that down. But he gets some kind of moments like that. As a story to tell, to focus it on the Newport Folk Festival, which I have been hearing about, my whole life. I've always been obsessed with rock music and the history of rock music. And I've always known that this was such a giant deal that Dylan, went onto this Newport Folk Festival stage with his rock band and they rocked out. And I've always thought, who cares? That doesn't sound that important or like a big deal. And do you think that the movie did a good job of selling that was a big deal?
Yeah. I'd say so, because it was like breaking from the genre of folk when Dylan wanted to like focus his time onto other things, but he had his posse with him. Like, no, like you have to stick with folk. Like we've made it this far. We're at the end. Like we got such a big crowd out there. You have to close it out for us. Tell them what folk is really all about. He was like, I don't want to. So
I don't know about that. I love seeing any any subculture that I don't know anything about, like seeing the folk scene and how important folk is. That's always going to be interesting to me. But I do think the movie did a good job of making you feel like the folk concerts where everybody is sitting very politely on chairs. That I can see how that could seem a little oppressive if you're a performer. Like you want the camaraderie of having a band. And two, it's just a little weird that everybody's just kind of sitting there very quietly and politely watching you up on stage. But I think that having Pete Seeger kind of embody this idea that Pete Seeger, who's played by Edward Norton, this idea that like we're a movement and we're on the precipice of something. I think that Mangold's take on this is like you're not though. Like I think I don't know that folk music was ever going to save the world. I don't think music was ever going to save the world. And Bob Dylan just wanted to, I don't know. It's like the movie's called A Complete Unknown because Bob Dylan has always been like a cipher. It's very difficult to know who he is, what he's about, what he really believes. And it's kind of tough to make a movie centered on that idea. But as a screenplay, I think it did a good job of getting you to spend time with him so you know him, but you still know that you're never actually going to know who he is or what he's about.
Yeah. I like that they focused on this slice instead of, his whole life. Like, I mean, it opens with him hitchhiking into the city, and right out the gate, I was like, oh, okay, this is where we're starting with him. So,
I mean, I'm so impressed with Chalamet. He's won me over. I was a Chalamet skeptic for a long time, but him, playing the instrument himself and doing it live on set, not just playing along with a pre-recorded track.
Yeah.
And really getting the physicality of the performance. Yeah. I was just a big fan of this movie. I like kind of everything about this movie. I don't know that I would say the screenplay is the thing that stands out to me about it though. I think that Mangold takes you onto the stage and you feel like you're up on stage with the musicians, and that's in the directing. That's not necessarily there on the page. Okay. Now Conclave, directed by Edward Berger, screenplay by Peter Straughan, and based on a novel by Robert Harris. What do you think of Conclave, Jay?
I like this one. You may hear me say this for 3 out of the 5 here, but this is another type of movie that I wouldn't really go out of my way to see. As far as it comes to like political or religious centered movies, it's not that they're bad. It's just not usually my cup of tea. So I was a little skeptical going into Conclave.
What you don't like? Do you don't like intrigue movies about political intrigue?
Believe it or not, I don't.
I do. I love that. When I heard about this movie, I was so excited. I was like, "Oh, that sounds like
really?
I'm gonna love this." Yeah.
Okay. Well, I will say, kind of like what you were saying about A Complete Unknown. It is nice to kind of dive into this unknown world.
Yes.
Like it's one of those things I never really thought about my entire life is like when the Pope passes away and they have to select a new Pope, what's that process like? What happens behind the scenes? Not something that's ever really crossed my mind. And this movie really intrigued me just to enter this world for a couple hours, see the types of like stressors that go into something like this. I thought it would be kind of a snooze fest, not gonna lie, for lack of a better term, snooze fest. But I really enjoyed it. It had some great performances. The story was gripping. I was really sucked in with the like intensity and the high stakes that everybody had to deal with here. So I think as a screenplay or as the story goes, it won me over, going from really low expectations to like fully in it.
It's interesting to compare it to A Complete Unknown because you're right. Yeah, this is you're being taken into a world, and obviously the Catholic Church is important. I know that, but I know very little about what it is. But to these people, it is the most important thing in the universe, and obviously the Pope is very important. But these are people who have devoted their entire lives to it and have opinions about everything about what a Pope should be and what should go into how you select the Pope. And the story that the movie tells is Ralph Fiennes plays this cardinal who is running the selection process of the conclave, because the way they do it is they all get sequestered. All the cardinals are summoned to Vatican City, get sequestered, and then basically do votes until they can come up with a with a consensus, but he is like running the vote, but then also secretly maybe is trying to run for Pope himself while also having to appear that he totally is not interested in running for Pope. And the screenplay does a great job of kind of burying that and not putting too fine a point on it, but it comes out occasionally. And Ralph Fiennes does a great job of betraying that, like, yes, he actually would like to be Pope. That's why all of them are there. They would like to be Pope. And, you know, with to compare it to A Complete Unknown again, like, you kind of get to this, I guess this is a mild spoiler for the movie. You get to a point where, you know, there's this question of like, what is the Pope's role even in the world today? What is it? What does it matter? What does it signify? And I thought that the movie was very interesting at sort of wrestling with that and wrestling with the idea that like we both have to cling to our traditions, but also embrace the way that the world is changing if we're going to survive. And they sort of symbolize that with this turtle that keeps coming up in the movie.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know. This is a fun movie. I liked it a lot.
Yeah.
And
I appreciated them taking all of the like modern misconceptions about the religion and the church and Pope and everything and bringing that into the forefront of the story at times. So I like that they didn't just kind of pass that off too.
And they do that by having different factions, like different factions of people and of candidates who believe different things. You have your sort of liberals, your reformers, your traditionalists, your conservatives,
right.
And you have people from all over the world believing, having different visions for what the Catholic Church should be. So it's a very, very interesting movie.
Yeah,
all right.
Agreed.
And now, Emilia Perez, the big one. This movie was written and directed by Jacques Audiard, based on I don't know. He wrote something. Jacques Audiard did, Emilia Perez, that this is based on, that makes it an adapted screenplay. But this movie seemed like it was the front runner for winning all of the awards at first, now embroiled in controversy, but also seems like one of those classic Oscar movies where the Academy loves it and nobody else in the real world seems to like it. What did you think?
Right. I finished this movie an hour ago, so this is the most fresh in my head. And that's also kind of putting it like I was putting this one off out of the list up until the last possible moment. It's hard to avoid the hatred that's been going on online about this and the controversies, as you said. But I still try to go in with like a clean slate, you know, and form my own opinion. And a lot of it just didn't work for me as far as the whole movie, but I'm trying to focus on
what didn't work about it was kind of the whole movie, kind of everything.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. To put it
if I had
lightly.
to pinpoint it, it would be everything.
But yeah, I don't know. I just felt like they were kind of all over the place. One thing I always try to look for in movies is like, what's the deeper meaning? What's the message that they're trying to like put into this, and then like have you as the viewer like absorb. And it just kind of felt all over the place for me. There are some very real themes in here and topical with like our current state of the country and the world. And I was hoping that they would have some powerful messages for us, but they kind of took it and ran in their own direction with it. And I don't know. I want to hear your thoughts though.
The message is, hey, it's rough out there in Mexico. Oof. Things are tough. Yeah, I don't know. To anyone who hasn't seen the movie, and in my memory, this movie's like 9 hours long. I think it's only 2 hours long, but it was difficult to endure. So this is a Spanish,
felt like 9 hours. Yeah.
Yes, a Spanish language movie made by a French director and French crew. But it's in Spanish. It is set in Mexico, filmed. Oh, I don't remember if they filmed it in Mexico. Anyway,
I think it was filmed in France. No,
it might have been filmed in Spain. Yeah.
Okay.
They don't come to us for where IMDb production. Look that up yourself, people. So yeah, this is a musical, but not a traditional musical. It's kind of a strange and weird musical. and it's about a cartel boss who wants to transition, is a transgender woman, wants to transition, and is also like one of the richest people in the world. And her plan, and this is why a lot of trans film critics have said, like, this is terrible representation of trans people. Her idea is she's going to fake her death, completely transform herself via surgery, and then secretly reintroduce herself to her family as a brand new person, but never tell them who she really is. And so, of course, yeah, like I'm a dumbass. I'm not a trans person, but even I'm like, wait a minute, this doesn't seem. I don't know about this.
Right.
Also, like, you know, I know that most trans people in the world are not cartel lords or like super rich and have this ability, but I at least know like it's not equivalent to dying and or at least having to fake your death. And then the vision of Mexico in this movie, it is like Donald Trump wrote this script. It is like you cross the border and it becomes sepia toned. It becomes cartel hell world. And the music sucks and it's directed like shit and it's boring.
Yeah.
The performances are good. Zoe Saldana is good. I think Selena Gomez actually is really good. And Carla Sofia Gascon, probably my least favorite of the three. And she's also not the lead of the movie. Zoe Saldana is very much the lead of the movie. But yeah, I don't know that she has a take on who this character is other than was evil, now trying to be good. I don't know. This movie sucks. It's a mess. And the screenplay is one of the worst things about it.
Yeah.
But I would not be surprised at all if this wins a lot of awards.
It is wild. I know this is something that everybody keeps talking about, but the amount of nominations that this movie has received alone is wild. If you look at the the viewers score, like I looked on IMDb, or not IMDb, Letterboxd. They have the lowest average rating out of every other movie that got nominated for Oscars in multiple categories. And they have the most awards out of everyone. So there's a huge gap there.
Yeah, but I really, it just seems like classic awards bait. And it will make you think like, no, this is a new and different movie because one, it's in a foreign language. Two, it has a trans person as one of its major characters. And it's like, okay, that's true. But otherwise, this is very much like an old fashioned, like this movie they could have made this movie in the 40s or the 80s. And the Oscars would have been all over it. Like, ooh, we get to visit this exotic foreign country of Mexico and see what it's really like over there and be glad that we're not over there.
Yeah, I feel like with the songs and the characters and having the central focus be on this trans woman, like / cartel boss, it seems like I got bamboozled into thinking that this would be one thing. And they were like, "Oh, look at all these musical numbers and these cool visuals," and the underlining story itself was like a mess, and just
nothing to grab onto. I mean, you would at least hope the musical sequences are fun. I don't think they are. I don't think they're directed well. I don't think the songs are memorable at all. I know. I don't speak Spanish, so maybe if I did, they would stick more with me. But I feel like that's just a basic thing you have to do is make your musical fun. And this just isn't.
Right. Yeah.
All right. Nickel Boys is next up. This movie was directed by RaMell Ross, his feature film debut, and screenplay by RaMell Ross and Joslyn Barnes. This was based on the novel The Nickel Boys by Colson Whitehead. I haven't read that book, but I've read a few other Colson Whitehead books. I've read The Underground Railroad. That was his big breakout book. But he actually has a book called Zone 1, which is a zombie apocalypse novel that I really recommend. One of my favorite zombie novels. Just very different from his other books. Just everybody check out that book if you want to. But what do we think about Nickel Boys?
I really like Nickel Boys. I think these types of stories are very important to tell. And how he told it was a big risk, but I think it worked out like phenomenally. Usually, and when I look at like past movies that were filmed entirely in first person point of view, they just kind of come across as like gimmicky, you know, like Hardcore Henry, Enter the Void, It's like they did it just for the gag of it, whereas Nickel Boys, it was all to fully immerse yourself into
Yeah.
these characters and what they experienced, and it was far from a gag or a gimmick, and it was really powerful
Yeah,
storytelling.
it is. The story doesn't exist without it. It literally
Yeah.
puts you there. You literally feel like this is happening to you. But then you can also get the trick of suddenly 20 minutes into the movie, you switch to a different person and now you see your lead character for the first time.
Oh yeah.
In Elwood. But yeah, this is the story of two teenage boys who are in this well, what would we call? I mean, a juvenile detentional correctional rehabilitation facility in the Jim Crow South in the 60s. Horrible conditions, also segregated, where the white inmates are treated better than the black inmates. But yeah, they're tortured. They are forced to work. There's corporal punishment. There's illegal executions and stuff. But the movie, it is not. RaMell Ross, the way he directs it is with such joy. It's weird to say this is a fun movie, but like this is a really, really entertaining movie too. I think the two lead performances also really give it so much life. And the screenplay, because he chooses to direct it in first person, then the screenplay has to be like really, really carefully thought out. Because in a way, it's like you're making the movie twice. I mean, not really, but you have to really, really have everything figured out ahead of time. And it's like jumping through time. It's throwing a lot at you, jumping back and forth in time, trying to situate you in this time and place. And I think it does all that pretty brilliantly. I think this is one of the best movies of the year. I love this movie.
I would agree with that statement. That first perspective shift when it goes from Elwood to what was Is it Turner?
Turner.
No.
Yeah, Turner.
Yeah, it goes from Elwood to Turner. My jaw dropped.
Yeah.
I was like, what? Where like you said, you see the protagonist for the first time.
Which is it's such a basic trick, but you're like, they can do that?
Yeah, right. Yeah. Seriously. It was at that moment, like I already knew that this was kind of a special movie, like from the beginning, but then when that first shift happened, I was like, this is extremely special. Like not just the story, how they're telling it. And yeah, it was a really powerful film, I think.
Yeah. So this is, I think, one of the underseen movies, that has gotten a lot of awards attention. I would just encourage everybody, if this sounds like a really depressing movie, I mean, it is a dark movie, but I would still encourage you to check it out. It is a fun movie. You will not regret it. And you will not forget it either. And then the final movie is Sing Sing, which I was surprised. I watched these movies back to back, and they have a little bit in common, actually. Sing Sing, directed by Greg Kwedar. Let's see. The story here was by Clint, Bentley, Greg Kwedar, and two people who are characters in the movie, Clarence Macline, aka Divine I, and John Whitfield, aka Divine G, the character that Coleman Domingo plays. And this movie is a very interesting movie about Sing Sing prison and an acting troupe, an acting program in prison called Rehabilitation Through the Arts. And Coleman Domingo plays this actor and playwright who's kind of like the unofficial leader of this group of inmates who put on a play every 6 months, and you spend time with them putting on their play. And this is another movie where you get to be in this world that you never would have thought about, and suddenly putting on the play seems like the most important thing in the world. But what's really, really special about this movie is how many unprofessional actors are in this movie alongside Coleman Domingo. And indeed, these are many of the actors are literally people who were prisoners, were inmates in the RTA program, including the second lead of the movie, Clarence Macline, Divine I, who I was like, this guy's a movie star. This guy needs to be in movies. He's
Seriously,
incredible.
He was.
I really like this movie. What did you think?
Love this movie. This was actually the second movie. I only have 2 movies rated 5 stars from 2024, and this was one of them.
Okay. What was the other?
This was one of them. Challengers.
Okay, hell
Quite a
yeah.
different film, but
Now they're a little different, but yeah.
But yeah, Sing Sing, like you said, something that I never would have thought of, like this RTA program. But as you're learning about it, as you're watching the movie, it makes complete sense. I mean, it's all about humanizing these gentlemen. It's all about preparing them to transition out of into the world and be in touch with their emotions, and it's therapeutic and it's escapism. And escapism is something that all movie lovers can relate to. You know, they have to escape from the everyday stressors of life, and the things that they're escaping from is a lot harder than things that we are trying to escape from in our day-to-days. So yeah, it really spoke to me, this movie. And it also just like the best ending credits, I think, of 2024.
Yeah,
when
where
it
you
was
get to see
going
the
through.
footage of the real play, which is probably on YouTube. Maybe I should go watch it, because while I was watching this movie, I was thinking I'd watch this movie. I'd watch the Breaking the Mummy's Code.
Right.
A thing that it does so well is, I've never been in prison, but I've done like creative things with my friends and group activities, and it's like, oh, the dynamics are always there. The tension, the like, well, I have my own idea, but my friend wants to do something else, and I want to like pout about it.
Right.
And it's here too. And a lot, I think that what's great about this movie, I wouldn't necessarily emphasize the screenplay. I think a lot of it is it's shot on film. You're shooting it there in the prison. You feel like you're there, and you just see all these faces, and you see all these real people, and a lot of them are allowed to improv their dialogue. So that's what makes the movie so special to me. But yeah, I think this is a great screenplay, and I'm glad that this movie's gotten so much attention, and I'm glad you liked it so much.
Yeah.
So we're going to make our predictions now. What do you think is going to win?
What I think will win is Conclave.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's probably going to be the top runner in the Academy. What I would like to see win, it's honestly a tie between Sing Sing and Nickel Boys, but if I had to boil it down to one, I would say Sing Sing.
Okay.
Actually, no, I take that back. I'm going to say Nickel Boys. I retract that.
Nickel Boys is going to win. I think I'm going to predict Sing Sing is going to win. Not for any reason other than I think that they want to see the real guys. They want to see the real Divine I and Divine G get up on stage and accept the award. And that would be lovely to see. And I think that like lovely. Oscar voters do think about things like that.
That's true.
What would you pick to win? What would be your pick to win out of these five?
Sorry. Yeah. What I meant before was Nickel Boys is what I would like to win.
Okay.
But Conclave is the one that I think will win.
Okay.
I kind of answered both in that one.
Nickel Boys would be my personal pick to win as well.
Okay.
I was going to ask you if you think was anything snubbed, but it might be kind of hard to, off the top of your head, be like, well, was that adapted or original?
Exactly. Yeah. And haven't done much research into that, so I will have no comment. But
let's just say Challengers was totally snubbed by the Oscars, which sucks. That's a great movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
Should at least get a screenplay nod. I think that's an original screenplay. If Mad Max, if Furiosa counts as adapted screenplay, then I would say it was snubbed and it should be in here instead of, let's say Emilia Perez. Yeah.
Yeah, right. I feel like every category that Emilia Perez is in could be substituted for a better film.
Absolutely. Okay. Finally, Jay, I just want you to make a guess about what the best picture winner is going to be. And I'll name the nominees for you again. It is Anora, The Brutalist, A Complete Unknown, Conclave, Dune Part 2, Emilia Perez, I'm Still Here, Nickel Boys, The Substance, Wicked.
I think for best picture, I can't even say it because I haven't seen the movie, but I feel like there's a lot of buzz around The Brutalist. So I feel like just from the buzz it has received, that will probably win. But again, I haven't seen the movie, so that's just what I've seen.
It's great. It's a great movie. You should see it. I love it.
Okay.
I will not be telling you what I think. I'm saving that for a different part of this episode.
Oh.
Yes. Everyone's on the edge of their seat. Last question. Your top movie of the year. Is it Challengers? Is it Sing Sing? Is it something else?
Challengers.
Okay.
That was my number one.
That would be Cinema Coconuts. Best Picture winner would be Challengers. All right, cool. Well, Cinema Coconut, everybody check out all of his stuff. Link in the description. Is there anything else that you would like to direct people to?
Nope. I'm on TikTok. I'm on YouTube as well under the same name, Cinema Coconut. Yeah, check me out.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.